I'm Richard. And I'm 61 years old. I've been told I have a calm face. People say I look like someone who's hard to anger, someone who forgives easily. They're wrong. That calm you see, it's not peace. It's the quiet of someone who's drowned too many times to care about surfacing anymore. Before everything changed, before the blood and the screaming and the things I can't scrub from my hands, I was small. Not in body, but in presence. The kind of person people forget standing in the corner of a photo. The kind of man whose voice gets talked over at the dinner table. I grew up in the shadow of people louder, brighter, and crueler than me. The kids at school made sure of that. I was the boy they tripped in the hallway. The one they called names that stuck like chewing gum on the bottom of a shoe. Teachers pretended not to hear. Friends? I didn't have any, just people who'd tolerate me until someone cooler came around. By the time I was a man, I thought I'd grown thicker skin. I had a son, Daniel. My only anchor. I didn't care about being liked anymore, not really. I worked my job, kept my head down, and built my whole existence around the one person who looked at me like I mattered. Daniel was 8. Bright, talkative, always asking questions that caught me off guard. He had my brown eyes and his mother's sharp cheekbones. His mother, Claire, was gone. She'd left when Daniel was just a toddler. Trading us in for a newer life, a better man. We hadn't heard from her in years, so it was just me and him. Always just us. I thought that was enough. I thought if I kept my head down, the world would finally leave me alone. I was wrong. It was a Thursday night when it happened. Rain against the kitchen windows, the sound of forks scraping on plates, the smell of baked chicken and rosemary filling the air. I smiled at him, one of those soft, private smiles only parents understand. I was happy in that moment. Not wildly, not ecstatically. Just enough. Then my phone buzzed. I don't usually check messages at the table, but something about the vibration felt different. Sharp. Urgent. Like the sound had teeth. I picked it up without thinking. The message was short. Just one sentence: get up and go. Don't say anything to your son. I stared at the words. No name. No number I recognized. Just that. I glanced at Daniel. He was mid-story, explaining how he'd scored the winning point in dodgeball, oblivious to the shift in the air. I should have ignored it. Should have deleted it and gone back to dinner. But there was a pull, an instinct that curled cold fingers around my spine, and then, another buzz. Now. He's here. Watching you, now. He's here. Watching you. My skin prickled. I looked up at the kitchen window, half expecting to see a face pressed to the glass. But all I saw was my own reflection, pale and confused. My chair scraped against the floor as I stood. Daniel stopped talking, Dad. I forced a smile that didn't feel right on my face. I just need to check something, buddy. I'll be right back. His eyes followed me as I walked toward the hall. I could feel them on my back like heat. The third message came before I reached the front door. Do not open the door. Go out the back. Now, the rain outside had gotten heavier, a steady drumbeat on the roof. The air felt charged, like the moments before a storm breaks. I hesitated. Every instinct screamed at me to grab my son and run, but my legs felt nailed to the floor. And then the fourth message: if you speak to him, you both die. I didn't realize until later how quiet the house had become. The sound of Daniel's fork had stopped. The little noises, the hum of the fridge, the ticking of the clock, felt louder, almost too loud, like the silence. Daniel was staring at me, but it wasn't the look of a child waiting for his father to come back. His eyes were wrong. Too still. Too focused. The phone buzzed again. My heart stuttered as I read, "That's not your son," my breath caught. I looked at him, at the boy I'd raised, the boy whose baby teeth I'd pulled out, whose scraped knees I'd patched. He smiled. "Slow, Dad," he said, and the sound of his voice didn't feel like his voice. The words came out lower. Sharper. I stepped back. My phone slipped from my hand and hit the floor with a sound that seemed to echo far too long. His smile didn't fade. If anything, it widened. "Where are you going?" he asked. The lights flickered once. Twice. Then went out completely. Somewhere in the dark, I heard the chair legs scrape again. Soft. Deliberate, and then, footsteps. That was the moment the quiet man I'd been started to die. Something else began to wake up inside me. Something that didn't just want to run. Something that wanted to end whatever was wearing my son's skin. But the dark has a way of making you feel small. Helpless. Like all the air's been sucked out of the room, and if you breathe too loud, something will hear you. The footsteps were slow, deliberate. Not the clumsy, rapid patter of an 8-year-old. No. Each one landed with weight, as though the thing moving toward me wanted me to feel its presence. I took a step back into the hallway, my hand brushing against the wall until my fingers found the edge of the doorframe. My other hand searched blindly for my phone on the floor, but the tiles were cold and empty beneath my palm. "Dad," the voice came again, closer now. Too close. The sound had depth, layers, like two people speaking at once, slightly out of sync. My mind screamed for me to run, but something in me resisted. Maybe it was the years of being pushed around. Maybe it was the anger I'd buried under decades of humiliation. Maybe it was because this thing had the nerve to use my son's face, my son's voice, to make me afraid. Whatever it was, my fear started to taste different. Bitter. Almost sweet. The darkness wasn't complete. There was still the faint, gray outline of the kitchen window against the heavier black. I could see movement in that lighter space. The thing stepped forward. And in that moment, the shadows around its body seemed to bend, almost clinging to it. Daniel's outline was wrong. Shoulders too high. Neck a fraction too long. Limbs moving like they were being guided by strings. My jaw clenched so hard I felt my molars grind. "What are you?" I said before I could stop myself. The smile twitched. Not his smile, too wide, stretching just a little too far into the cheeks. The voice that answered came from the same mouth I'd kissed goodnight for 8 years. But it was colder than the rain hammering outside. "You've been watched for a long time." I moved before I could think, ducking back into the hall and fumbling toward the back door. My hand found the lock, twisted it. The wind hit me first, wet and sharp. But before I could step out, my phone lit up from the floor behind me, the glow pooling faintly against the wall. Another message. "Don't run. You'll never make it." The footsteps stopped. The kitchen was silent again. But the silence felt wrong. It wasn't the absence of sound. It was the presence of something listening. I edged toward the counter where the knife block sat. My fingers found the handle of the largest one. The weight settled into my palm like it belonged there. I'd never been in a fight in my life. But right then, the thought of slicing through whatever had taken my son felt natural. I wasn't going to run, I was going to hunt. The shape moved again, stepping into the doorway between the kitchen and the hall. The eyes weren't Daniel's. They were black. Not dark brown, not shadowed. Black like an oil slick, and deep inside that blackness, something moved. It tilted its head at me, curious. "You've never fought before," it said. I gripped the knife tighter. "First time for everything." It smiled, too wide again, and then it stepped back. Into the dark, the air shifted, lighter somehow, like a pressure had lifted. But that's when I realized I couldn't hear the rain anymore, not a single drop. The phone buzzed. My hand shook as I picked it up. It's in the house. But not where you think. I froze. Every hair on my body stood on end. The thing in the kitchen was gone, which meant whatever sent the messages wasn't warning me about it. A sound came from the hall closet. A soft, wet thud. I turned slowly toward it. My own reflection looked back at me in the glass of the picture frame on the wall. My eyes were wide, my face pale, my lips pressed into a thin line. Another thud. Something inside that closet was trying to get out. I stepped forward, every nerve screaming. My fingers reached for the handle, and then, just as I touched it, a small voice from inside whispered, weak, terrified, "Dad, please help me." My grip tightened on the knife, because whatever was in that closet sounded exactly like my real son. My throat went dry. My mind kept throwing images at me. Daniel on the soccer field, Daniel laughing with chocolate ice cream smeared across his cheek. Daniel falling asleep on the couch with his head on my arm. If that voice was him, then what the hell had I been sitting across from at dinner? The air in the hall was cold now. Not the kind of cold you get from a draft, but the kind that feels alive. It slithered over my skin, coiling around my spine. I pressed my ear against the closet door. The wood was icy. "Dad, please, it's so dark in here." My eyes darted to the phone still in my. The reply came instantly, "Yes. And you have seconds before the other one comes back." My chest tightened. Seconds. I reached for the handle, hesitated, then pulled it open. The smell hit me first. Damp, metallic, sharp. Like wet iron. Then my eyes adjusted. Daniel. My Daniel. Curled up on the floor of the closet, hands bound with thick rope, duct tape smeared across his wrists and ankles. His eyes were wide, tear-streaked, his mouth gagged. I dropped to my knees and yanked the gag free. It's okay, I'm here, Dad." He sobbed, clinging to me so hard I could feel his nails through my shirt. "It's not me. That thing, his words cut off as his gaze snapped past my shoulder. I didn't need to turn to know. It was behind me. The sound it made wasn't footsteps this time. It was slower. A scrape. A drag. Like nails across tile. I stood, turning with the knife raised. It was in the hallway now, between me and the kitchen light's faint glow. The shadows clung to it like oil, dripping down its arms. Daniel's face, or the mockery of it, was twisted into something feral. "You found him," it said in that double voice. "Good. Now I don't have to hide anymore." The knife felt hot in my hand. My heart wasn't pounding with fear anymore. It was something else. Something heavier. I stepped forward, shielding Daniel behind me. "You're not taking him." It tilted its head. Grinning. "You think you can stop me? Little man who's been stepped on his whole life." Something in me cracked. And the crack didn't let light in, it let something else out. Memories flashed, being shoved into lockers, laughed at, ignored. Claire walking out the door without looking back. Every moment I'd swallowed my anger because I was too weak to fight. No more. My voice came out lower than I expected. I swung the knife. Steel met something solid but wrong, not bone, not flesh. It was like hitting wet stone. It hissed, jerking back. A thick, dark liquid seeped from where the blade had cut its shoulder. The smell was choking, burnt hair and rotten leaves. Daniel was crying behind me, whispering, "Dad, don't let it take me, please." I lunged forward. Every swing of the knife was easier, more natural, like my body knew this fight in ways my mind didn't. The thing backed into the wall, but its grin never faded. "You're waking up," it said, almost approvingly. "What are you talking about?" I spat, pressing the blade closer to its throat. Its smile widened, splitting its skin in a way that should have been impossible. "You've been asleep your whole life." "But anger." "Oh, anger makes you strong. Doesn't it?" I pressed harder. "You're not leaving this house alive." It leaned forward until its mouth was almost against my ear. The whisper was cold enough to bite. "Neither are you." A crash sounded from the kitchen. I flinched, just for a second, but it was enough. The thing slammed into me, sending me sprawling to the floor. My head hit the tiles hard. The knife clattered away. Through the blur, I saw Daniel scrambling toward me. But the thing didn't go for him, it went for the phone. Snatched it off the floor in one clawed hand and crushed it like it was made of paper. No more messages. No more help. It turned back to me. "Now it's just us." Something inside me snapped for good. Not fear. Not panic. Just hunger. The need to tear this thing apart. I reached for the knife, my fingers brushing the handle, but before I could grab it, Daniel screamed. The thing had him by the arm now, lifting him off the floor like he weighed nothing. Daniel's legs kicked wildly, his face twisted in pain. I got to my feet, the world narrowing to one simple thought: "You will not take my son." I lunged. The knife found my grip again. And as I raised it high, something strange happened, something that wasn't me. The shadows in the hallway bent toward me. Like they were answering a call I didn't know I'd made. The thing noticed too. Its grin faltered for the first time. "What are you?" it hissed. I didn't answer. I drove the knife forward, and the lights in the whole house exploded into blinding white. When my vision cleared, Daniel was gone, the thing was gone, and I was alone in the hallway, the knife still dripping with something black that steamed against the floor. From somewhere deep in the house, Daniel's voice called out, "Dad, dinner's getting cold." The voice floated down the hallway, soft, casual, like nothing had happened. Like there hadn't been a thing with black eyes in my kitchen, but it wasn't coming from the kitchen anymore. It was coming from deeper inside the house. From Daniel's bedroom. My grip on the knife tightened until my knuckles whitened. My feet moved without my permission, drawn to the sound. The floorboards creaked under me as I passed the hall closet. The door still hung open, the ropes that had bound my son lying limp on the floor. The smell of damp iron lingered. I swallowed hard and kept walking. Daniel's bedroom door was half open. A pale, flickering light spilled through the gap, like candlelight, but colder. "Dad," the voice called again, closer now, "you're going to miss it." I pushed the door open. The room was wrong. It looked like Daniel's, same bed, same posters, same little desk in the corner, but the walls pulsed, faintly, like they were breathing. The shadows in the corners didn't move with the light, they moved on their own, curling and stretching like fingers, and in the middle of the bed sat Daniel, or at least, something wearing his face. He smiled at me. Not the stretched, unnatural grin from before. This one was normal. Warm, even. The kind of smile he'd give me when I brought him hot chocolate after a long day. On the blanket in front of him sat 2 plates of food. Chicken. Potatoes. Steam curling into the cold air. "I saved you a seat," he said. I didn't move. "Where's the real Daniel?" My voice came out lower than I intended, edged with something sharp. "I'm right here." I shook my head. "No. You're not." The shadows shifted along the walls, like they were listening. Like they were waiting. The thing sighed. "You're making this difficult." I raised the knife. Good. It didn't flinch. Instead, it reached for a fork and began eating, each movement deliberate. You could have been happy, you know, it said between bites. We could have given you anything. No more humiliation. No more being invisible. You and your boy, living without fear. You took him. It smiled again, a sliver of teeth catching the flicker of light. No. We woke him. Just like we woke you. Something in the air shifted then. My chest felt heavy, my skin prickling. The shadows on the walls started pulling toward me, just like before in the hallway. I didn't call to them, they just came. The thing tilted its head. Yes, you feel it now, don't you? The pull. The power. That's ours, but we're willing to share. I took a step forward. I don't want your power. I want my son. It set the fork down slowly, its black eyes locking onto mine. Then take him. The blanket fell away, there, curled at the foot of the bed. Bound in rope, was Daniel. The real Daniel. His eyes were wide, his mouth gagged again, his skin pale from fear. I moved. So did the thing. It lunged across the bed, its mouth opening wider than any humans could, rows of jagged teeth glistening. I didn't think. The knife was already swinging, the blade sank deep into its neck. A scream tore from its throat, high and low at the same time, rattling the air in my chest. Black blood sprayed across the bed, hissing when it hit the floor. The shadows writhed violently, slamming into the walls, curling toward me in chaotic bursts. I yanked the knife free and drove it in again. And again. Each strike was faster, harder, fueled by every year I'd swallowed my rage. The thing thrashed, its form collapsing inward, skin folding like wet paper. The smell of burnt metal filled the room, and then silence. The body dissolved into the floor, leaving nothing but a dark stain that steamed and hissed until it was gone. The shadows peeled away from me, retreating back into the corners. I turned to Daniel. His eyes were glassy with terror, but when I cut the ropes, he clung to me, sobbing into my chest. It's okay, I whispered. My voice shaking. It's over. But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't. We left the room together, my arm wrapped around him. The house was still and quiet again, almost normal. The smell of dinner still lingered in the air, as if the night had just been a bad dream, but the shadows along the walls seemed to move just a little too much when we passed, and when I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror, I froze. My eyes, for the briefest second they were black.